Welcome to Out the Back Door, where your host Adrian Apostolatis talks about everything from your back door to the back fence and all the bits in between.
Hi everybody, morning or afternoon depending on what time you're watching or listening, and today I've got a very special guest. Every guest is special, but I've got a good old dear friend, Natalie Fryer, with me here today, and she is the owner of M2 Property Presentation. I thought it'd be a great opportunity to help our listeners and viewers to understand a little bit more about styling their property. So Natalie, I'll let you introduce yourself and tell me a little bit about M2 Property.
Thank you, Adrian. Well, M2 has been around for about 13 years and we have two arms of the business.
Yep.
One arm is that we style properties for real estate agents and vendors. We really help create an emotional connection with the buyers and with the property in order to get the best possible result.
Yep.
So we continually exceed the vendors' expectations on what the price would be.
I've seen a lot of that on your social posts recently too.
Yeah, we have had some rippers lately in terms of the results that we've been able to help vendors get.
Yeah.
And then there's a natural flow on from that, which is the arm of the business that is the interior design side.
Right.
That's where we help people set up their homes to create really beautiful, comfortable spaces to live in.
Okay, perfect. So I guess with two different angles there of the business, I guess we can look at both fronts. So I guess from the first aspect in terms of people selling their home as well as sort of the interior styling, what do you think is the most important aspect for people to consider on each aspect of those?
Yeah, that's a really good question, particularly as they are quite different depending on if you are selling or if you're wanting to set the place up for how you're going to be living with you and your family.
Yeah.
So when it comes to when it comes to selling, we talk to the vendors about having a look at what parts of the property are the biggest assets and to really highlight the value of those.
Yeah.
So it might be that there's a large master bedroom that becomes a real lovely retreat. So we, look at having, bedroom chairs and side table in there so that people can see themselves spending time in there, not just having it as a room to sleep in.
Yeah.
It might be that there's an extra big backyard or a fabulous outdoor living space that is great for entertaining. So those are just little pointers that we'd get in order to increase the value of the property, is to think about how each room's set up.
Right.
But when it comes to actually living there, it's a little bit different because it's as much about the functionality as it is about the presentation. So you want each room to be a beautiful space, but you also want it to work well for how you live.
Yeah.
And one really good example is that as kids get older, when they're little, everyone wants to hang out together in the same room. But as your kids get older, they want nothing to do with mum and dad.
Yeah.
They want to take off into their own space.
Yeah.
And then that's when it becomes a bit of a different project within the same space to create different zones that people can escape and have time to themselves.
That makes sense. So two very different schools of thought depending on where people are at in terms of the sell versus when they're moving in, etc. I guess when people are selling, how far do you go in terms of restyling? Do you essentially, I guess I'd imagine over the years you've seen every different imaginable palette and taste. Do you often, is it a matter of taking everything out and then you almost starting again, or where do you start and stop when people are selling?
It totally depends on what's there to start with.
Right.
So sometimes when we're styling a property, it's already vacant. It might have been tenanted and the tenants have moved out. And so we come in and style from scratch.
So you got a clean, blank canvas.
That would be the advantage there, is that you can bring everything in and make it more cohesive. But we also do a lot of partial styles where people are already living at the property and we go in there, and it's not just about cushion fluffing and bringing in a bit of artwork just to take the presentation up a notch. It's also looking at what pieces that they already have there that are maybe letting the team down.
Right.
It might be that there's a large sofa that is taking up way too much floor space in the room and making the room feel cramped.
Yeah.
It might be that they have got a third bedroom that is just a bit of a storage space and is not better utilised. And so by setting that up as a bedroom or even creating a home office will increase the saleability and also the price expectation. So so we basically would look at what pieces would need to go into storage.
Yeah.
And then we give them a list of what we would bring in with the expectation of giving each room a really clear sense of identity.
Okay, interesting. And how long will that process take I guess for you to come in and evaluate and then sort of, I guess, that initial journey with that client when they're selling? Is it a long process or? Yeah,
look, typically it's the real estate agent who passes on our details to the vendor. Sometimes people find us independently.
Yeah.
And then once we've viewed the property and we've put together a quote and a proposal, we would email that through typically the following day. We always love to have about a week to 2 weeks lead time, which is a great amount of time to properly and thoughtfully pull the pieces all together that are going to work brilliantly in that home.
Yeah.
But we also are known for performing miracles when people need something, in a few days. Yeah. So we can pretty much do that as well.
Cool. On the flip side of things, so then people have moved in and they need some guidance from, I guess, thinking about that interior design aspect. Often I'm walking into people's homes and you're getting to that outside alfresco or you're trying to get through, and often I'm seeing things are very cramped. I guess every home is different, every person is different. Do you sort of have a set of rules or guidelines when you're walking in for that interior design aspect that you sort of you guide yourself through or follow to a set of rules almost, or how do you approach things?
I think for when it's an interior design job, we really want to make sure it feels like it's the most authentic version of the people who are actually living there. So my own kind of taste and style is really just, it's helping them. If they really love a colour palette that has blues and greens in it, then we'd use that as a starting point. And if they had a favourite chest of drawers that was from a great grandmother that they wanted to make sure that they incorporated in, then we would work with that, and we would come back to them with a suggestion of a collection of pieces to add into their favourite bits and pieces in order to pull together a cohesive look. But also it's great to have a few little eclectic bits in the mix because it's always going to feel a little bit more authentic. You don't want
personal.
it. You don't want it to look like it's been cookie cutted straight out of a showroom.
For sure. Often the word that I use a lot with my clients, and I think it resonates, is flow. So thinking, sort of drawing people from that interior lounge room out into that alfresco space. Do you look at alfresco spaces a little bit differently to interiors, or? I
think the word flow that you used is a really good word, because not only do you want to have a sense of flow and cohesion throughout the property, ideally, and particularly living in Sydney, it is such ideal weather to make sure that there's that transition between the indoor and outdoor living spaces.
Yeah.
And so particularly if there's a situation where which often is the case, where it might be an open plan kitchen, living and dining space, and the glass doors are opened up at the back and it opens directly out into what is potentially the outdoor living and dining space.
Yeah.
So whether it's people who are living there for, long term, or whether it's people looking at styling their house to sell, we always really encourage that those are typically set up as an extension of the living space. So it becomes like an outdoor dining space and an outdoor living space.
Yeah.
And even just with little hints of whether it's with the outdoor furniture that we bring in, or whether it's having an outdoor kitchen that extends, but we'd try and link with things like colour, bringing in coloured cushions that are in the same palette as the inside of the house, so that you get that feeling of flow.
Yeah. No, that works well, because often I guess that resonates a lot with clients, and I guess they're not wanting to get something that, and I try and guide them so it doesn't feel like it's an add-on, it's an afterthought, so to speak.
It shouldn't feel like it's just been cut and pasted in.
Yeah.
It should feel connected to the rest of the house.
So on the flip side of that, where do you see people making errors in terms of their own interior design attempts?
I think both indoor and outdoor, and you would see this as well, is people trying to do too much in the space.
So cram too much in.
Yeah, and then it can not only look cluttered, but you lose that clear sense of identity. I think you need to think about how the space is best used,
Yeah.
whether it's for having family meals outside or whether it's for having people over. You want to create a space that is clearly, it has that sense of purpose for as a gathering space or a relaxing space, an eating space. And I think that works for both inside and for outside.
Yeah. And often I try and get people to think about how, using that word again, flow, how they're going to get from that kitchen space into that outdoor space without tippy-toeing around or doing a little dance around too much furniture, so to speak, and really almost taking away a few aspects, because often people come and they've got a million different ideas, but it's almost just chunking those down and breaking those down to a few small, as you said, key areas or how they really want to focus on using that space. And then, as you said, not really over cramping the area. So
yeah, and look, what we have often done is when a family is living there, we've reconfigurated the space, because they might have a sofa set up that cuts the room in half, and by turning that around and having a sofa against a wall and then having a pair of armchairs opposite, the simple reorganisation of that layout means that you create a flow where you're not cutting the room in half and you can get in and out through the armchairs. Similarly to outdoor as well, you always want to have a think about how that pathway through the kitchen into the dining space is uninterrupted and you're not going to be having to trip over extra pieces of furniture. And it's amazing how often we have our clients say to us, oh my goodness, why did we not have this configuration
earlier
10 years ago when we moved in? And now we've got it set up perfectly as it should have been. Yeah.
One thing I was just thinking of, family size, does that play a role in terms of your thinking, or I guess in terms of sofa sizes or table sizes or things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. And also there might be a small family that also loves to entertain or loves to have family functions at their house.
Yeah.
So things like extendable dining tables are fabulous for that, because it means that for 90% of the time that space is being used, it's not overcrowded with a table that's too big for the space.
Yeah.
But it also gives them the ability to overcrowd it for the day by having, Nan and Pop and half the grandkids or whatever over, and they can all comfortably sit around. So things like that are definitely can be thought of and considered. Also things like you can now get a fabulous range of outdoor cushions, of outdoor ottomans, of outdoor rugs. So there's a real opportunity now with the interior design of outdoor spaces to create really beautiful, comfortable rooms that work really well for a small amount of people or a large amount of people.
So that outdoor range of materials, it can last outside, or?
Yeah, look, I think the technology has come such a long way in the last 5 years or so that companies that traditionally, one of my favourites is a cushion company called Walter G, and they do not only really beautiful, a fabulous range of cushions for interiors, but they've also now brought out an outdoor selection of beautiful soft furnishings that really would bring the place to life with colour and texture on an outdoor sofa as much as it would for inside.
And I think what you just said there in terms of adding that colour and texture, often people just, I think, forget about that outdoor space. They reserve that for the inside and think, well, they can't do anything on the outside perspective. But I think that really can make the difference. And what you were saying before, almost having those little personal touches as well too, can really make the area stand out a little bit more and be more personal. So
and look, when it comes to selling the property, it will photograph beautifully if it has a little bit more colour in it, and definitely adds value. And also just thinking about the outdoor furniture that you have there's been so many times when someone has a really exceptionally large outdoor space, whether it's a deck or paved area or a courtyard, and they've just got one they might just have an outdoor dining setting and that's it.
Right.
And when we've brought in an outdoor lounge to work with it, they've basically said, we really wish that we had had this a long time ago, because it's amazing how much we use the space more.
Yeah.
So I
almost dividing the area into twos, so to speak? Or?
Well, I just think that maybe if people are considering looking at their outdoor space as an extension of the living space.
Yeah.
So there's just so much more opportunity to create rooms, I guess,
Yeah.
so that you have that, so it can be used not just to sit at a table and dine, which is probably how most people consider using a bit of outdoor space that
Yeah.
they have, but having an outdoor lounge setting as well
Yeah.
really does allow you to use the space a
Mix
lot
and
more.
match a little bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about, do you see trends play through in terms of interior design, or do you sort of see different waves come through that sometimes, I guess, things change over time, or is there any current trends happening at the moment, or?
Look, there's always trends of in all different variations. With outdoor especially, it would be, I think the outdoor furniture used to be a lot chunkier and really kind of filled up the space and made it feel quite cluttered.
Yeah.
Whereas now outdoor furniture, there's what would be considered more contemporary now would sit on legs as a regular sofa would, and you can see under it, which always makes the space feel larger.
Yeah.
And things like colour plays quite a bit. So even if you're looking at Pantone Colour of the Year, one colour that it is incredibly popular at the moment is I describe it as a very pale mauve colour.
Right.
So bringing that into it, that works really beautifully with blues and other colour ranges. But I think one thing that I always think about, and I try and encourage clients to think about, is rather than what's on trend, you are better off investing in a colour palette and pieces that you personally really like and that you're going to like in 5 years and in 10 years' time. Because I think that if you get too caught up in what's on trend, it's also going to be not on trend.
It'll fade, yeah.
You don't want to be 5 minutes later not having the interiors feel dated.
Yes.
So I think the recommendation would be that you stay relatively neutral with some of the bigger pieces, but then you can always bring colour in through cushions and with artwork and accessories that are relatively easy to switch over if you get bored in a few years' time.
No, that's a good point. And what you were saying before too, I've noticed in terms of outdoor furniture options has changed a lot, where I think when I'm seeing clients who, when we've finished and they've come in after we've left and we've come in for the photos, and the styles and bits of furniture they've put in, you sometimes you wouldn't even pick it that they're purely designed for outdoor. Whereas in years gone by, it was almost like you'd throw the old bits and pieces out there. But now you're getting that nice transition between the indoors to the outdoors as well with the furniture. So I think there's a lot more options out there for people to consider with their furniture too. So,
yeah, that's very true. And a lot of the, as you said, a lot of the pieces now you would never even pick it as being an outdoor furniture piece. There is the quality and the design of some of the outdoor furniture pieces now is just fabulous.
Perfect. Have I missed anything? Is there anything else there that you think people should consider on both fronts of your business, whether they're selling or from the interior design aspect, that people should carry away with them?
I think if going back to what you talked about with flow, I think a suggestion, whether you're selling your home or whether it is creating a space that's beautiful and comfortable for you and your family to live in, is to think about editing colour. So sometimes a room tries to do too much, both with the amount of pieces that are in it, but also sometimes with the colour. It's really lovely to have a pared back palette that does give you some cohesion and flow throughout, and kind of not having everything matchy, but to have a little bit more pared back, both in the pieces and in the colour, I think makes a huge difference.
You've mentioned colour quite a few times in terms of cushions and things like that. And I guess whether it's a male thing or what, often I don't think about those things.
Yeah.
But I guess it's from what I've picked up from our conversation is just it's not only the furniture and bits and pieces, but also thinking about artwork, which you've mentioned, and then also the colours too. So I think that's my little tip from that aspect. So maybe I'll look at things a little bit differently, not only from the colour point of view of just sort of beams and roofing and things, that clunky stuff, or the generic building elements.
Yeah.
But almost looking at those little little pieces, whether it's
Yeah.
cushions or whatnot.
And cushions I love a cushion, and I always refer to it as cushion porn. Like I could just spend days and days just looking and getting excited about cushions.
Right.
But I think most people have got their head around artwork and that it serves only the purpose of just bringing joy through the pure beauty of what the art does to the wall in terms of adding that colour and creating a mood for that room. Artwork is a huge part of that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the way that I view cushions is whether it's in a bedroom or whether it's in a living room or even an outdoor space, that cushions are such a fabulous way they're like artwork for a sofa or artwork for a bed.
I've never thought of that.
They just bring colour and add that mood to the room.
So do you spend like 30 minutes in the morning loading the cushions back on the bed? Or
Oh, that's such a... I think we get such a bad rap for over cushioning a bed and it being typically a girl thing. One thing I can't stand is a cushion chop. I just find it so twee and makes it feel very formal and stiff, which is... I much prefer to have a more relaxed sophistication where it feels like this is a space that you're going to enjoy and be comfortable in, not just that it's been set up as if you're about to do a photo shoot.
Yeah.
So I also don't like when a bed, for example, has so many cushions on it that it looks like you're left with about that much bed to sleep in at the end. Yeah. So I do always love to have a throw at the end because I think that really finishes it off beautifully, but also just to have a couple of cushions that add a little bit of colour and mood. And it just makes the bed look great. So, yeah, I do start. The whole house can be in absolute chaos, but if the bed is made, I'm calm.
There you go.
It's all good.
There you go. Well, look, I've taken a lot out of today, and I think the cushion aspect, I'm going to look at cushions and colour so much differently now. But I think from me, I've written down quite a few notes, and I'll take away not only the cushions and the colour, but I think what you were saying before at the very beginning in terms of selling the house, looking at the biggest aspects, so whether it is your master bedroom or whatnot, and trying to sort of focus on that and make that a bit of a highlight. And also I've written down authentic. You mentioned that in terms of having the space be authentic to yourself.
Yeah, look, I think some of there are some styling companies that do the ones that I always think it looks better and you get a much better result if it doesn't look too generic, if it doesn't look too monotone and it doesn't look too cookie cutter like it's come straight out of a showroom. So
it's about you.
Yeah, I do. I do think that you have, when there is that character that comes through and has a bit more personality where it isn't so cut and paste and cookie cutter, you're always going to get a far better result, whether it's an interior design job or for styling to sell.
Yeah, being individualised. So, yeah, I use that a lot too. So, no, that's a good point.
It's just as relevant for outdoor spaces, definitely.
Lastly, how do people reach out to you? I follow you on social and you throw up some wonderful sort of before and afters
As opposed to throwing up. I wasn't sure where you were going there.
Sorry, but in terms of what's the best place for people to reach out to you?
The best place to look at the stuff that we do is to look us up on Instagram. So M2 Property Presentation, all is one word, M2 being short for metres squared. That's probably has the most recent and up-to-date examples of the work that we do and the results that we get.
Perfect. And I'll throw your details in the bottom in the show notes as well. But I've taken a lot out of today and I hope our listeners and watchers have as well too. But thank you so much for joining me. And I look forward to catching up with you again shortly.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
No, cheers. Thank you.